What up, what up, what up? Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Asbrock's Bengals Thoughts, presented to you by Impact Sports Cincinnati. My name is, of course, Chris Asbrock, and I'm back for another week to cover another Bengals loss. Bengals this time went across the pond to Wembley Stadium in London, England, and they fell to the Los Angeles Rams 24-10. And this one, again, it seems like every single week we're saying the same thing, and that's just how it's going to be. And looking here, if you look at the stats overall, it wasn't too bad. I mean, Andy Dalton, 32 of 52 for 329 yards. He did have a touchdown, no interceptions on that end. Joe Mixon rushed for 66 yards. Giovanni Bernard for 31. Through the air, Alex Erickson, again, another big game. He was targeted 7 times, hauled in 6 of those for 97 yards. Tyler Eifert, a big game from him. He had 74. Tyler Boyd and Auden Tate each hauled in 65 yards of receiving. Giovanni Bernard, 14. Joe Mixon, 11. So it's, when you see the way that, it's playing out, it's more maddening to see how the game, the way it just plays out. It's tough. This is a tough team to watch, and this season, you can't blame everything on the offensive line because Andy Dalton missed a couple throws, but hell, that's what we're used to with Andy Dalton, right or wrong. Andy Dalton, you know what you're going to get from him. Either he's going to have a good day or a bad day. Overall, he's going to always miss some throws. Now, granted, no quarterback is always going to be perfect in making those spot-on, throws, but that seems to be the case with Andy Dalton every single week. And I've been one of his biggest proponents. Again, he just manages to let you down in some certain instances. Now, granted, again, it's not all, this loss isn't on Andy Dalton, by God, no. It's just the total. Now, there we go. Now the drive books, or the game books coming up. This is what I've been waiting for. You look at Andy Dalton, he had a quarterback rating of 86.1. So another game where he had another solid, to me, another solid performance. It wasn't fantastic, but it wasn't poor. But he's the first quarterback in NFL history to start a season 8-0 and 0-8. So that's pretty impressive by Andy Dalton there. But, if you look at the way everything breaks down here when it comes to the stats here, the Bengals gave up 470 total net yards. Now, that's a lot better than what it's been in the past, but they did rack up 401 net yards. The Bengals ran more plays than the Rams did, 79-57. So that's 22 more plays the Bengals were able to run. But then again, could not get anything established and punch the ball, when it came down to it. Fourth down, the Bengals were 4 of 6. That's impressive, in my opinion there. But then again, like Lapham said on the broadcast, the Bengals, if they let it go to fourth down, they're a heck of a lot better than what they are on third down. The Bengals were 6 of 18, 33%. Another week where the Bengals are poor on third down. But again, they get it done fourth down, and unfortunately, they were unable to get it right towards the end of the game. Naturally, when it comes down to it and it matters, they couldn't get it going. Bengals had 24 first downs compared to 19 by the Rams. Bengals got 5 of those on the ground compared to 15 through the air, and 4 of those were via penalty by the Rams that cost them. But it's just it's the same thing every single week, and you tend to going in every single game this year that the Bengals they're just going to falter, and I will always be with this team and love them, and that's just part of being a hardcore fan with them. But I'll tell you what, it's tough because again, they're a couple plays away from having a pretty solid record, and now you're staring down the first overall draft pick, which I will eventually get to that. I'll discuss that at a later date. to talk about, what the Bengals, mentality should be in the draft. But, you look at the Bengals had 9 drives, and actually so did the Rams if you look at everything. Technically, each team had 9 drives. Bengals, first one was a punt. They went 5 plays, 20 yards, and they gathered 2 first downs, but then ended up having a punt. Then the Rams go 12 plays, 95 yards, and get a field goal. So that's, the Bengals did a really good job defensively there in terms of stopping the Rams on a couple big plays there. Now, here's the thing. I've said it before. I can't remember if I said it the last episode, but when it comes down, the Bengals defense is porous. They give up a lot of yards, and that's enough to drive you nuts there. In this case, trying to find the rushing yards. The Rams only had 98 rushing yards compared to 104 for the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, that right there is the Bengals actually outrushed the team. Now, Dan Horde was talking about it right at the end of the game today, if you heard on the radio broadcast, that he says if you're able to outrush some of these teams that we have coming up, you're going to put yourself in a pretty good spot to win the football game. Now, not every team we're going to be facing is going to be the Rams. The Rams do have a high-powered offense. And, with Todd Gurley, Jared Goff, Cooper Kupp, that's going to happen. You're going to face these teams. But then again, you only gave up, 372 yards through the air to Jared Goff and only 98 yards on the ground. Now, looking here at the stats here, Jared Goff was 17 of 31 for 372 yards. He was not sacked. He did have 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, for a quarterback rating of 119.3. His longest was 65 yards, which was that double reverse, pass. And Cooper Kupp, now BW Webb, I felt bad for the guy. As soon as I saw him slip to the ground, it was game over. I knew Kupp was taking it in. That's typical Bengals luck. Unfortunately, it's just a bad luck there on that play. And unfortunately, it bit us right in the butt and cost us 7 points right there. But other than that, Cooper Kupp had 7 receptions on 10 targets for 220 yards. That's 31.4 average right there. And he did have the 1 touchdown. Now, Reynolds had 73 on 3 receptions. Robert Woods with 36 on 2 receptions. So, there was a couple, if you look at, the Bengals gave up a couple big plays. And let me see if I can get down to it here where the NFL game book does a great job of talking about the longest plays each team had. And it's nice, but I'm not seeing it right here. Yeah, here we go. 10 longest plays. So that was 60. The Bengals gave up 10 plays of over 20 yards. At least that's what they're showing here on this. They gave up plays of 65, 40, and those two, 65 and 40, were both to Cooper Kupp. 31, 31, 31, 30, 25, 23, 21, and 20. Now, that's tough to swallow. However, the Bengals did only give up 24 points. Now, I'm fine as, if you look at the way things are playing out here, obviously you don't want to be giving up a ton of yards. The Bengals are doing that. However, the points aren't seeming to be there. They're doing a good job when it comes down to crunch time of making defensive stands and only holding teams to field goals. Now, however, when you should be trading field goals to or touchdowns to field goals, the Bengals haven't been doing that, and that's where we have the issue. However, the maddening part of that, of those 10 plays, 5 of those were on third down. They had a 3rd down and 10. It was a 20-yard pass. 2 third and 8s, a 21-yard pass and a 23-yard pass. A 3rd and 5, you give up 31. That was the pass to Cooper Kupp. 3rd and 10, you give up 40 to Cooper Kupp. Now, the Bengals, And they mentioned it on the broadcast today, on the TV broadcast, that Zach Taylor said the Bengals have to close down the middle of the field. Well, they got victimized and brutalized over the middle of the field all game long, and that continued after, play after play after play, it seemed like. Now, when you see, if you look at the 10 plays that were the biggest ones for each team, 2 of those for the Rams were touchdowns. That was a 31-yard pass to Reynolds, and then that 65-yard double reverse flea flicker to Cooper Kupp. That was a touchdown. The Bengals had, out of their 10 longest plays, were 13, 14, 14, 18, 19, 22, 25. They had 2 for 27 and then 1 for 52. None of those were for a touchdown. Now, when you're giving up big home run plays for touchdowns, that's where you're going to have that problem. The Bengals fell into that today and unfortunately they couldn't overcome it. Now, they had a chance to bring it to a one-score game right at the end and couldn't get it done. Now, that's the tough part, with watching this team, is it's like they're right there on a lot of these games. And it's like, at least that's how it feels right towards the end. Obviously, the scoreboard is going to show a much different story than the actual game. That could happen. You could see a game that's a 41-0 game, but it might not be as bad as the scoreboard suggests. Or you could have a one-score game like the Buffalo Bills game, which honestly, that game wasn't close in the first half. The Bengals were lucky to be in that, and then they ended up taking the lead in the second half, and then ended up faltering. So it's things like that you don't really see the entire story. But here, you look, and like I said, when you're trading, field goals for touchdowns, you're going to lose that battle every single time. And also, when you're giving up chunk plays and those result in touchdowns, you're going to lose that battle every single time. And that's what's happening with the Bengals. And I before the game, I knew the Bengals weren't going to win this game. I knew it. It was just a matter of, well, let's go out there and see what we can do. I knew the Rams wouldn't pour it on the Bengals, simply because of the respect factor that Sean McVay has for Zach Taylor. I didn't think this game was going to be a total blowout. Like, it wasn't going to be like the Niners game where we just got pummeled in every aspect of that game. It wasn't going to be like that. I didn't think Sean McVay would pour it on like you would think. But it really wasn't a tough one because the Rams were able to move the ball with relative ease throughout this game. And that's, I would expect nothing less. And that's how it was. The Bengals, once again, they were shut out in the second half. And that's where, a lot of these games, the Bengals have had a chance to make it, make it tight or even pull out a victory in the second half, and they haven't been able to get it done right at the last second. Now, that's when you're putting up points in the second half. I think if this team was able to put up points in the second half and capitalize on drives, we might be talking about the first Bengals win of the season. But again, shut out in the second half. But granted, they only gave up 7 points in that second half as well. And then that was the Todd Gurley run on that 10 to cap off that 10-play, 75-yard drive in the third quarter. The Rams, their offense, if you look at their scoring drives, they went 12 plays on their first drive. The field goal was 12 plays, 85 yards, took 6 minutes and 5 seconds. And then the Reynolds touchdown pass from Jared Goff was 7 plays, 92 yards, took 4 minutes and 14 seconds. They went 92 yards in 4 minutes and 14 seconds. The Rams then again, the Cooper Kupp, long pass in the second quarter, that was a 3-play, 75-yard drive that took 1:21. And then Todd Gurley capped off that 75-yard drive on 10 plays for 4 minutes and 46 seconds. So that they are able to make you pay in a relatively quickly. And but the Bengals again did a good job of. Let's look at the drive summary for each team here. But the Bengals, they led in. The Bengals got in the red zone more often than not. 1 of 4. That was 25% in the red zone. But the Rams only got there twice. Now, granted, 2 of those were again on the chunk plays, but then again, the Bengals, they held the Rams. They did a relatively solid job of keeping the Rams off of the scoreboard in terms of how how the drive was going to end. The Bengals in the first drive, the first 3 drives for the Rams resulted in points. They actually resulted in 17 points. So they went 12 plays, 95 yards, 7 plays, 100, and basically it was 102, but you had the 10-yard holding penalty, so it was 92 net yards. That was off, result of 31, that 31-yard touchdown pass. And then the next play was a 3-yard, 75-yard drive that resulted in that long touchdown pass to Kupp. Then after that, it was the Bengals held them at their next 6 drives. The Bengals held them to 5 punts. Now, 5 punts and a touchdown, that's, as a defensive coach, you got to be ecstatic for what you saw out of that. You look at the yards that were gained out of those drives. 8 plays, 36 yards. Bengals held them to a punt. 6 plays, 49 yards. Held them to a punt. 4 plays, 20 yards. Held them to a punt. A 3 play, so a 3 and out, and it was only resulted in 3 yards, a punt. 5 plays, 15 yards, and another punt. So those right there, the drives that they held the Rams, scoreless on and forced them to punt, the Bengals did a great job defensively, and that's where you have to, build momentum on that, and the offense has to step up and get it going. The Bengals again punted the first drive of the game. Then they end up getting the field goal, and then they got the touchdown drive where they went 11 plays, 71 yards. But then it was punt, 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 and then 2 drives where they ended on 4th down. But the Bengals were driving, if you look at the way they had a 20-yard drive, a 70-yard drive, a 71-yard drive, and then you drive 46 yards and end in a punt, 30 yards and end in a punt. Then you drive 77 yards, end on 4th down, and then 80 yards again, end on 4th down. So those are 2 drives right there at the end of this game you have to capitalize. And unfortunately, the Bengals just couldn't get it. They just couldn't finish it when they needed to. So again, the Cincinnati Bengals, yeah, it's a tough season, but there are some positives, and it's the bye week couldn't come at a better time because now, like I said, you're 0-8. You have a division matchup against the Baltimore Ravens looming at the end of the bye week in 2 weeks. So you get a chance to get off the schneid right from the get-go coming out of the bye week. We should hopefully have some guys coming off of the injury list and getting healthy. AJ Green targeting that week 10 return. If we see AJ, there we go. Now the question is, what are you going to do with Andy Dalton? Andy Dalton's through contract next year. Now, do we see Ryan Finley? Do the Bengals see, they not wasted a draft pick, but they used the pick on Ryan Finley. Do they see what you get with him? See what you got. See how it's going to play out. Or do you just continue to roll with Andy Dalton and try and get a couple wins right here at the end of the season? Right now, the Bengals are staring at one of the first 2 picks of the draft. The Dolphins, they play tomorrow night. We're on Monday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers. If the Dolphins win, the Bengals they're slotted right now to take the first overall draft pick. Now the question is what they do with that. Again, I will address that later on. I'm not going to touch that right now. But so it's going to be interesting to see how the Bengals approach this bye week and see what goes on here and who's going to play coming out of it. Again, there's been a lot of injuries to this team, but it is what it is. That's going to happen. It happens with every single team. It's all what comes out of it and how teams step up and play with those injuries. And the Bengals have not been able to get things going consistently, but that's been our MO, it seems like, every single year. But again, I mean, in my opinion, all's not lost. This team, there's still some positives to look at. And I still think that once you get, once things play out the way you would like, to see from, as a coach, get some guys back in, get some repetitions. It's, things are going to play out. I don't think the Bengals, I don't believe they go winless this season. I truly don't. I think they do get at least 1 or 2 wins out of it, but it's all going to depend on, health. If we come out and get some guys back, then I think we can easily achieve more than just 1 or 2 wins. But if we continue at the rate we are, we're going to be staring at the first or second pick overall in the draft, and then we'll go from there on how we look at it. The trade deadline is Tuesday. We're going to see if right now there was a report the Bengals said they're not going to be moving anybody. That right there could be a little maddening to my eyes because I feel that there are some guys that could be moved for some draft picks that you can build on for the future. And I think that's what we have to look at here for this team and moving forward and building this, this roster for the 2020 season and beyond. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. I promise you I will be touching it on a podcast. I will be discussing it. I will be coming out with basically a mid-season report for the Cincinnati Bengals. That'll be coming up here in the next week or so. But stay tuned for the website for that. Now that soccer schedule's done, I will be able to be putting out a little more content now, which is great, at least on the website. But make sure you check out feeltheimpactsports.com as always too. That's where a lot of this will be posted. Make sure you like and subscribe to my YouTube page. That's where obviously this video will be posted. And make sure the audio portion of it will be on my podcast page, anchor.fm/Chris-Asbrock. So make sure you check that out as well. Again, thank you guys so much for your support. Make sure you continue to check out feeltheimpactsports.com. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Asbrock's Bengals Thoughts, presented to you by Impact Sports Cincinnati. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at I am Chris Asbrock and at FTI Sports. Thank you guys and have yourselves a fantastic rest of your week, and I will check back with you later on.